He was a billionaire. She was carrying firewood. When their eyes met on that dusty African road, he chose to pretend she was a stranger. But she was his mother. In a small African village where the sun burns the earth and poverty never sleeps, an old woman walks every day with firewood on her head and silence in her heart. This same village once watched her raise a boy with bare hands and broken dreams. She starved so he could eat. She bled so he could rise. Today, that boy returns. Not on foot, not in rags, but inside a black luxury SUV, bringing his rich fiancée home for the first time. He has money. He has power. But on this road, he is about to face the one thing wealth cannot erase. His mother. Hello, dear listeners. Thank you for joining me today. Before I begin my story, I would be very happy if you subscribed to the channel and left a comment writing which state or country you are listening from. It always warms my heart to see how far our stories travel. The morning sun was shining over this remote African village as if it intended to set the earth on fire. The red dirt roads, the rooftops of the huts, and the withered trees stretching into the distance were silent witnesses to a life that was far from easy. Time moved slowly in this village, and poverty was never in a hurry. On this very road, an elderly woman walked barefoot. Her back was bent, a heavy bundle of firewood rested on her head, and her steps left marks on the dusty ground. Her clothes were old, worn in many places, yet clean. Her eyes showed fatigue, but there were no tears. She did not cry, she simply endured. Her name was Nalia. The entire village knew her. She was the woman who had lost her husband during the famine many years ago. She was the woman who had raised a fragile child in her arms and nurtured him into adulthood. She was the woman who went out in the rain to gather firewood, ensuring that her son never went to bed hungry. Even today, she carried firewood so that the wheel of life would keep turning. She had never asked anyone for help, nor did she ever complain. To her, being a mother was her identity. From the other end of the road, a black luxury car approached slowly. Its polished exterior gleamed under the sun, almost blinding to the eyes. Vehicles like this were rare in the village, and whenever one appeared, people would stop and stare. Inside the car, the air was air-conditioned, the seats soft, and silence prevailed. Behind the wheel sat a man in an expensive suit. A shining watch adorned his wrist, and his eyes held a strange unease. His name was Cairo. Cairo had once run barefoot on this very village road. He had learned to ride a bicycle on this dirt path. It was here that he had dreamed of becoming someone great one day. His dreams had come true. Today, he was a billionaire, a famous businessman whose name appeared in newspapers. He had everything: money, power, respect. Yet, a fear occupied his heart, one that no deal or fortune could ever erase. Beside him sat his fiancée, Amara. She was beautiful, confident, and came from a successful family. Her clothes were elegant, a designer handbag rested on her arm, and curiosity shone in her eyes. It was her first time visiting Cairo's village. She knew little of his past, only that he had risen from poverty to achieve wealth and status. She considered his story inspiring, yet she had no idea of the price he had paid to get here. As the car drew closer, Cairo's eyes fell on the woman walking along the roadside. His heart skipped a beat. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. His breath grew heavy. That face, that bent back, the way she carried herself, he recognized it all. She was no stranger. She was his mother. Time seemed to stop. The car slowed slightly, yet Cairo gave no signal to stop. His mind echoed with one thought: if Amara saw him like this, what would she think? If she learned that his mother still carried firewood to survive, would she feel ashamed of him? Love and fear clashed within his heart, but fear was winning. Nalia had also heard the car. She lifted her head, and her eyes met the man sitting behind the glass. Recognition was instant. This was her son, the very child she had carried on her back, trekking miles to fetch water. The child for whom she had sacrificed her youth. Her lips moved, as if to call his name, but no sound emerged. She stopped walking and stepped aside. The car passed close by. Cairo did not roll down the window. He avoided looking directly at her, pretending not to notice. Amara looked outside, but her eyes lingered only on the simplicity of the village, not on the woman. The car moved on. A tear slipped silently from Nalia's eye, absorbed by the earth below. She did not curse, she did not cry out. She simply readjusted the bundle of firewood and continued walking. Pain filled her heart, yet greater was the peace in knowing her son was alive and successful. Cairo's car had entered the village, but his heart remained on that road. Memories of the past flooded his mind, the nights when his mother let him sleep hungry while she drank water herself, the days he had considered leaving school, and her holding his hand, telling him that knowledge was his path out of the village, the moments when she had sent him to the city, hiding her tears behind a brave smile. Amara finally broke the silence. "This village is simple, yet there is a strange kind of truth here," she said. Cairo merely nodded, unable to speak. Words caught in his throat. That night, the house where Cairo stayed was the finest in the village, yet it felt like a prison to him. He kept looking out of the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of his mother, but all that greeted him was darkness and the chirping of crickets. Meanwhile, Nalia sat by the fire in her hut, adding logs and watching the flames dance. Her mind held the image of her son. She looked up at the sky and whispered softly, "May my son be happy." A faint smile graced her lips, though her eyes were moist. Cairo could not sleep that night. For the first time, he realized that all his wealth was meaningless compared to this silent moment. A question arose in his heart, one that had no easy answer. It followed him relentlessly, and he knew it would not let him live in peace. It was just a single day, yet it demanded the reckoning of many years. This village, this road, and that mother, they had all become a test for Cairo, the results of which were yet to unfold. The night had deepened, yet sleep was miles away from Cairo's eyes. The village's silence was entirely different from the city's chaos. There were no horns, no glowing screens, just the distant barking of dogs and the continuous chirping of crickets. He lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, but in his mind, there was no ceiling, only a dusty road, and on that road, a bent figure of a mother. He shifted slightly. A strange weight pressed on his heart. He was a billionaire, a man whose commands moved the world, yet today he could not face a single glance. For the first time, he felt truly defeated. He closed his eyes, but Nalia's face became even more vivid in his mind. Amara lay quietly on the other side. She sensed Cairo's unease, but said nothing. She knew that some questions only time could answer. Still, a subtle unease had awakened in her heart. The road, the woman, and Cairo's suddenly changed expression, none of it seemed ordinary. Before the sun rose the next morning, Nalia had already awakened. For her, the day always began with pain, yet that pain had become a habit. She filled the water pots, swept the area in front of her hut, and then set off toward the forest. Her steps were the same as always, but her heart was no longer the same. Yesterday's moment lingered somewhere deep inside her. She knew her son had returned. She knew he was wealthy, prosperous. And she knew that he had refused to acknowledge her. Yet there was no anger in her heart, only a silent question. Is being a mother truly such a shameful bond? Was still carrying firewood to survive. Around noon, Amara said she wanted to see the village. Cairo's heart thudded. He knew that every path in the village could lead him close to Nalia, yet he could not refuse. He could not run from this fear. They walked together. Children ran behind them, laughing. Women peeked from doorways. Suddenly, Amara's eyes fell on a hut where an elderly woman was seated, picking corn kernels with worn hands. Her face was tired, yet her eyes held a strange glow. Amara stopped. "That woman," she said softly. "Isn't she the one we saw on the road yesterday?" Cairo's steps froze. He wished the earth would swallow him. He nodded, saying nothing. Amara stepped forward and greeted Nalia. Nalia lifted her head. Her eyes first met Amara's, then Cairo's. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. There was no surprise in Nalia's gaze, only recognition. She slowly stood. "Daughter, sit," Nalia said gently, as if speaking not to a stranger, but to someone she belonged to. Amara sat. She felt an unusual sense of belonging in this woman. "Do you live here alone?" she asked. Nalia smiled. A mother is never truly alone. Her children live somewhere, always. The words struck Cairo's heart like an arrow. He stood silently, head bowed. Amara looked at Nalia's hands, roughened from years of hard work. "You work so hard," she said. Nalia looked up at the sky. Work is worship for a mother. Hearing this, something inside Amara broke. She glanced at Cairo, who avoided her gaze. At that moment, she realized there was a deep, hidden bond between this woman and Cairo, a bond he had been concealing. Evening approached. Amara asked for permission to leave. Nalia blessed her. As they walked on, Amara paused and said softly, "Cairo, is this woman your mother?" The question was gentle, yet its weight was like a mountain. Cairo stopped in his tracks. There was no escaping now. He whispered slowly, She is just a woman who has known us since childhood." The lie reached Nalia's ears. She said nothing, but closed her eyes as if placing yet another burden upon her heart. Amara remained silent, yet her perception of Cairo began to shift. That night, she stayed quietly, thinking that a person who could avert his eyes from his mother might be hiding many other things in life. Cairo stepped outside alone. He stood on the very road where he had denied her the day before. Dust swirled in the air. He sat on his knees and let his hands touch the earth. For the first time, he felt disgust for his wealth. From a distance, Nalia watched him. She did not come closer. She knew that some truths cannot be forced. They must reveal themselves in their own time. That night, Cairo decided he would no longer run. Yet he also knew that speaking the truth came at a steep price. That price might include his love, his honor, perhaps even his entire world. And it was at this moment that the real test was about to begin. The night had deepened, and the village's silence carried a sense of gravity. The air was filled with the scent of grass, earth, and wood, while somewhere in the distant forest, the faint sounds of animals echoed. Cairo looked out from the window of his large house, yet his gaze was fixed on something else. He was staring at the road where he had ignored his mother the day before. The road, the dirt, the sunlight, all of it pierced his heart once again. His mother, Nalia, still wearing her simple, everyday clothes, was engaged in her daily labor. Today, too, she had collected firewood from the forest, carried it on her shoulders, and walked toward the road. With every step, her back bent a little more, yet the light and patience in her eyes, the same that had nurtured her son for years, remained. Cairo slowly opened the car door and stepped outside. He had come with Amara, but his heart was somewhere else entirely. He told himself, "I can't run anymore. I must face the truth." Yet when he approached Nalia, his steps froze. Pride, fear, and shame battled within him. Nalia saw him. For the first time, she noticed the shame in Cairo's eyes, yet she remained silent. She knew that everyone must realize their mistakes in their own time. She stepped forward and set the bundle of firewood on the ground in front of him. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, yet courage shone in her face. Amara sensed the silent tension between them. She asked softly, "This woman, is she your mother?" Cairo's breath caught. He lowered his eyes and whispered, "Yes, she is my mother." Nalia looked at him and, for a moment, searched his eyes for her memories, the times she had carried him on her back, the nights he studied while she went hungry, the first day of school when she held his hand and blessed him. All these memories surged together in her heart. Tears filled Cairo's eyes. For the first time, he realized that wealth, fame, and power could not replace what he had lost. The greatest loss of his life had been the moments he had ignored his mother. He stepped forward and took her hands in his. His hands shook, yet there was sincerity in his voice. "Mother, forgive me." Nalia closed her eyes and held his hands in hers. She knew this moment was meant to come. Softly she said, "Son, you can achieve anything in life, but never forget your mother." Amara watched the emotional moment unfold. Her respect for Cairo deepened. She realized that the greatest value lies not in wealth, but in the bonds we share with our loved ones. Throughout the night, Cairo and Nalia spoke at length. He recounted memories from his youth, and his mother listened quietly, smiling. Occasionally, she spoke, but every word was filled with love and patience. Cairo said, "I lost everything chasing wealth, Mother. I ignored you. But now I understand that nothing would have been possible without your sacrifices." Nalia replied softly, "Son, money is necessary in life, but a pure heart and respect for relationships are the greatest wealth of all." Hearing this, Amara reflected that love was not just romantic, it also comes from understanding family and sacrifice. She held Cairo's hand and said, "You've endured great trials, and today you face the truth. All of this will make you stronger." The night deepened further. In the village's silence, only the voices of these three were heard. For the first time, Cairo realized that the true meaning of wealth and fame is not what he had always believed. It is these moments, these relationships, and these sacrifices that truly make a person rich. Nalia sat by the fire and embraced her son. Cairo, forgetting everything else, rested his head against his mother's chest. He cried, he smiled, and for the first time in his life, he understood the value of truth and love. Amara watched them and thought to herself, "This is the story that truly matters. Wealth, power, fame, they are temporary. But respect for relationships lasts forever." That night was only the beginning. It marked the start of a new chapter in Cairo's life, where he would recognize his mother's respect, his love, and his responsibilities. He knew that from now on, everything in his life would change, and he would try to make things right. In the darkness of the night, the village's silence concealed everything, yet in the hearts of Cairo, Nalia, and Amara, a new sun had risen, a new beginning, a new bond, and a new understanding. This moment was not only for the three of them, but also a lesson for everyone witnessing the story. Relationships, sacrifices, and love are far more valuable than wealth. And this lesson became the greatest gift in Cairo's life. After the night, the village air had a touch of coolness. The first rays of the sun fell upon the earth, as if trying to awaken every particle. Cairo felt the beat of his own heart, as if sensing his mother's sacrifices through it. Every moment reminded him of all she had given. That night, sitting beside his mother, he realized for the first time that wealth and fame were nothing. Everything seemed meaningless compared to love, sacrifice, and respect for relationships. Nalia stepped onto the road with her firewood in the morning light. Her back seemed slightly straighter, yet her steps remained the careful, strong rhythm that had defined her for years. From a distance, Cairo watched her. He stepped out of his car and approached her. Shame and regret filled his eyes, but now there was something new as well, a determination to make things right. Amara walked beside Cairo, and her respect for him grew. She understood that some bonds are formed not by wealth, but through sacrifice. She looked at Nalia and thought to herself that this woman had taught Cairo life's greatest lesson. Cairo bowed before his mother and said, "Mother, I have always ignored your sacrifices. Today, I promise I will honor your respect and love for the rest of my life." Nalia smiled. "Son, true wealth is in relationships, and today you have learned everything by facing the truth." Slowly, villagers began to gather. They wanted to see how this new chapter of Cairo's life was unfolding. Some smiled, some had tears in their eyes, and in every heart, there was one question: has this son truly understood the value of his mother's respect? Cairo addressed the gathered villagers. "I have come here today to acknowledge my past mistakes and to honor my mother with the truth." Hearing this, everyone fell silent. Each person watched as a man accepted his mistakes and faced the truth. Nalia took some corn kernels in her hands and began distributing them to the village children. She knew not every child could be connected to her son, but the seeds of love and knowledge must be sown. Cairo also helped, using both the softness of his hands and the power of his wealth for the children. In that moment, he realized that true wealth is not just money, but the ability to give and sacrifice for others. Amara, seeing all this, walked alongside Cairo. She understood that love and respect are never shown through words alone, they are revealed through actions. Looking into Cairo's eyes, she said, "You have truly changed. Today, not only have you made your mother happy, but you have set an example for everyone." The day passed, and life in the village slowly returned to its routine. Yet, in the hearts of Cairo, Nalia, and Amara, a new chapter had begun. Cairo decided that he would no longer use his wealth solely for his own pleasure. He would work to improve the lives of the villagers. He understood that the real purpose of his success was not merely to amass money, but to honor his mother and the value of relationships. At night, when everyone had gone to sleep, Cairo sat with his mother. He said, "Mother, today I have learned everything. I promise I will never forget your sacrifices." Nalia nodded and softly said, "Son, it is never too late to make things right. Just remember to include love and respect in every step." The night air carried a blend of fragrance and peace. People in the village were happy in their homes, but the peace and calm in the hearts of Cairo, Nalia, and Amara was the deepest and most lasting. That moment had become the greatest lesson of their lives, that the true value of wealth and fame lies in love, sacrifice, and respect for relationships. After that, Cairo began planning for the village. He helped build schools, started clean water projects, and promised to establish health centers for the villagers. Every day, he spent time with his mother, listening to her and learning from her wisdom. There was a sparkle of joy in Nalia's eyes. She knew her son would no longer chase wealth alone, but would care for his people, his mother, and his relationships. Amara was happy too. She saw that Cairo had truly learned that the value of love and sacrifice is far greater than money. With time, the village began to prosper. People became happier and more peaceful. Cairo grew gentler and more humane. He became an example for everyone that true success is not measured by wealth or fame alone, but by living life with relationships, sacrifice, and love. This story was not only a lesson for Cairo, but for every villager as well. The lesson was that a mother's sacrifice, a son's recognition, and the power of love are life's greatest treasures. And with that, the scent of love, respect, and sacrifice was forever embedded in the soil of the village. The morning sun slowly rose above the village huts. The air was filled with the scent of earth and fresh air, and every leaf on the trees shimmered in the sunlight. Cairo stepped outside with his mother. There was no regret in his eyes now. Instead, there was a new determination to live his life guided by truth, love, and sacrifice. Nalia sat in front of her small hut, holding corn kernels in her hands and distributing them to the village children. Joy and respect shone in the eyes of every child. Cairo also handed out some kernels with his own hands. A smile appeared on his mother's face as if to say, "My son has truly become a great man." Amara stood nearby. She looked at Cairo and noticed he was no longer the same person. His demeanor now carried gentleness and humanity. She whispered softly, "You have truly learned that wealth is not everything, Cairo." Cairo nodded. "Yes, Amara. I have realized that the greatest wealth is in relationships and love, and from today, I will live my life according to this truth." Slowly, villagers began to step outside. They wanted to see how Cairo's life had changed. Some smiled, some had tears in their eyes, and everyone wondered how a person could truly improve by acknowledging past mistakes. Cairo addressed the gathered villagers, "From today onward, I will not live for my wealth alone. I will work for my village, open schools for children, build health centers, and strive for a better life for every person." Hearing this, the villagers rejoiced. A ray of hope spread through the village air. Nalia raised her hands to the sky and prayed. She knew that her son had truly learned his lesson and would now live as a good man for everyone. Cairo held his mother's hands and said, "Mother, I promise that I will never forget your sacrifices, and I will use all my achievements to honor you." From that day onward, life in the village began to improve slowly. Cairo initiated schools and health centers, and the villagers became more prosperous and peaceful. Everyone witnessed his efforts and love. At night, when everyone had gone to sleep, Cairo sat with his mother. He said, "Mother, today I have learned everything. Now I understand that the greatest wealth is love and sacrifice." Nalia replied softly, "Son, learning and understanding are the greatest lessons. Today you face the truth, and that is the greatest achievement." Amara also came close and sat beside them. She looked at Cairo and said, "You have truly changed your life and set an example for everyone." Cairo worked with his mother to begin new projects for the village. Every day, he spent time with her, learning from her experience and striving to improve the lives of the villagers. There was a sparkle of joy in Nalia's eyes. She knew that her son would no longer chase wealth alone, but care for his people, his mother, and his relationships. With time, the village began to prosper. People became happier and more peaceful. Cairo's personality softened, and he became an example for all, that true success is not measured by wealth and fame alone, but by living with relationships, sacrifice, and love. This story was not only a lesson for Cairo, but also for every member of the village. It taught that a mother's sacrifice, a son's recognition, and the power of love are life's greatest treasures. And with that, the soil of the village was forever filled with the scent of love, respect, and sacrifice.